Hi, I'm Tommy Ferguson. I am the father of Joshua, Abigail, and Maya. And I love saying Joshua's name. It really is quite emotional because even though nearly 12 years ago he was stillborn at 40 weeks, he's still very much a part of our family, and he's very much part of my life and my story. It all started really, really well. Joshua was our first child. Abigail and Maya came later. And everything was really low risk. We were doing maternity, midwife-led at the maternity hospital, so there was no risk factors. Leslie didn't smoke, I didn't smoke, all healthy, natural weight. So every time I went to see the midwife and to get check-up, it was all hands-on. There was no scans, there was no kind of medical intervention. It felt really natural, and we really, really enjoyed that, and a really good relationship with the two midwives that we had. And as everything went through the pregnancy, all the measurements were all great. Leslie was doing really well, and everything was fantastic, and there was absolutely no reason not to think everything was going to be wonderful, and we'd have our first child. And then the story kind of goes south. I can remember it because it was the weekend of the 41st week or close to of the pregnancy. And I thought, great, that's me off the next couple of weeks on paternity leave. This baby's going to come at the weekend, and we'll have a great time. And baby didn't come. And Saturday rolled around, and then Sunday rolled around. And I thought, right, I'm not going to waste my paternity leave. So getting set up to go back into work on Monday, I wasn't feeling great. And I think that kind of rubbed off on Leslie. She wasn't too happy as well. So on Sunday, I think Leslie had said to me, things aren't moving, or there's not much happening. And again, this is me remembering nearly 12 years ago. So Leslie, your story could be quite different. But I do recall her thinking a bit of nerves and stuff, and I said, no, it's fine. But on Monday morning, I went into work, and I can remember the desk I was sitting at, and Leslie phoned up just before lunch saying, no, there's something not right here. She's just one of those things, she doesn't feel right. And I said, well, give the hospital a call, or, phone up. And then she said, no, I don't want to bother them. But eventually, I think she did. And they said, well, baby's only 41 weeks, there's not much room to move there, I don't expect too much going on, and if you're worried or anything, just come up. So she phoned me back, I think, she says, no, I'm fine, that's reassurance. I said, listen, go up to the hospital if you want to, get checked out, make sure. And no, and I think there's a bit of guilt there from her, and indeed from myself, that we actually didn't do anything at that stage. But after I came home from work, and I think I might have left a bit early, we said, no, that's, we're still not happy, so let's go up to the hospital and just get checked out and make sure things are all okay. So we went to the hospital, and that Monday turned out to be obviously the worst day of our entire lives. We went in, we sat for ages. I'm sure a lot of people will remember sitting at maternity waiting for an appointment that wasn't booked, and just got more worried and more nervous. And I recall the first midwife we saw was very, very good. Young woman, but very experienced and very knowledgeable. Put us at ease. Says, yeah, put down. And she got the ultrasound out and was scanning away. And you can see the face. I can't pick up the heartbeat here, but we've got this crappy NHS gear that's been kicking around for ages. And I looked at the scanner as you said that. I remember it was a Hitachi scanner, and I thought that looks knackered. So right, listen, we'll move you over and we'll get you one of the new scanners in the next room, and just make sure everything's fine. And as she did that, I think Leslie started to twig on that things weren't right. I was oblivious. So we went into this new room, and a matron or a senior midwife or whoever it was came in with her. And this fancy Samsung LG type scanner. It was really new. You could see it was clean. And then here we go, here's the business. And again, they started to look for the heartbeat and scanning, etc. And nothing. I think Leslie started to cry at that stage, and I was still no idea what was going on. And eventually they called a consultant in. A senior consultant came down, and he did the scan, etc. And he was quite blunt, and I still don't forgive him to this day. And he says, I'm sorry, the baby has no heartbeat. And I went, and what, we'll find it. He says, I'm sorry, and Leslie's in bits and tears, and the midwife's comforting her, and I'm still trying to process and realise just exactly what he's told me. And he said, yeah, no, we can't find a heartbeat. I said, well, we get the big machine next door, or get the fancy machine, go up to the next level, or get the next expert. And I remember he says, well, can I get like somebody else to come in? And I just caught the midwife at the corner of my eye going, there's no point. This is your baby has died. There is no heartbeat. And then it kind of hit me, and that changed my life, changed Leslie's life, changed our entire life, and things started to go on a different path. After that, it's what do you do? So I completely ignored the consultant. I talked to the midwives, who were super and fantastic, and I have been ever since. And we said, well, what are the options here? We were still trying to process what and I thought, do we go delivery and get the baby delivered? And I had really no concept that this was a baby. This was just something now that we needed to kind of process. Do we go now? And he said, well, and I thank her to this day. No idea who she is, but I thank her to this day. She said, well, listen, if you wanted to have more children, the best way to do this would be to deliver as normal. So that would mean probably an induction, and we deliver the baby. And I went, right, well, let's do that. And he says, you might want to think about that. You might want to take some time and relax. It's been big. The upshot was that was great advice, and I can't believe we were in the state of mind to actually take that on board. But we did. So we left the hospital. And every time I tell this story, it's horrific because I didn't drive at the time. So Leslie left the hospital with me, with our baby, Joshua. And she drove home from the Royal to our house in Belfast, South Belfast, with, in effect, a dead baby in her womb. And we went home overnight, and then drove back to the hospital the next day for an induction. And I literally cannot remember anything about that night. It was just awful. This was generally before we had mobile phones, and the internet was just a relatively new thing, so I was phoning people. Leslie's American. Her mum was due to come over. It's just phoning people, telling, that wonderful news. Yeah, it's boy again. No, unfortunately, he died. So we went back to the hospital for the induction. And again, the staff there were astonishing. The midwives that we'd seen before came in, and they walked in and just burst into tears. Everybody was just really emotional, but very, very supportive. And the induction went ahead, and we delivered Joshua. I can remember thinking at the time, well, what happens now? This is the dead baby. What do we do with it? Is that it? And we go home now, and that's all. And again, the midwives came to the rescue because we didn't plan. We hadn't bought any clothes for Joshua. We hadn't bought cameras or anything. And then one of the big things that I've subsequently learned is you make as many memories as possible, as soon as possible, because now 12 years down the line, you treasure those. So they put some clothes on him, they got him washed, dressed, etc. Took some photographs, did hand and footprints. And I can remember to this day when the midwife says, do you want to hold him? And I went, can I? Is that allowed? And it sticks to me this mind because, not allowed. This is your son. How can you ask permission? This is grab. So we grabbed him, and we got some really beautiful pictures of us holding him. Myself holding him, holding my son in my arms, and then as a family, as we were at the time, Joshua and Leslie and I holding him. And those are precious, precious memories, and I thank the midwives for that. And after that, we think, well, what happens next? And just, well, you can hold him, we'll obviously think about burial or whatever happens next, but for now, stay with him, and that was fantastic. And even thinking back on it now, it's probably a lot of the hormones, the adrenaline stuff. We were really happy, absolutely happy. I had a wonderful time with him in the hospital. And eventually, time came, we had to move on. So we had some of our friends arrange with the funeral director to pick Joshua up. And we went home. And I can remember again, my family came up to say, well, can we see Joshua? And I said, no, he's at the funeral home now, etc. She says, you sure? So I said, all right. So I phoned up. And the funeral director said, "Of course, he's your son. Come on down. Come on, see him. We'll put him out for you. You know, he's a bit cold and stuff, but come on." And that was fantastic. So we got to spend more time with him and create more memories. And the funeral director, who it later turned out also had a bereavement, stillbirth. I mean, they did everything for us. You know, we didn't pay a penny. We unfortunately had a charge for the flower we had on his coffin. So the arrangements for the funeral, I think Leslie and I had both agreed that we would have Joshua cremated up at Woodlawn, etc., and his ashes then spread at the baby garden, which is up there, which is wonderful. That's our place of solace. We go and visit him, as it were. Neither of us are overly religious, so that's one of the things that we did. All people do different things. But the funeral was really strange, because it was like an Irish funeral. It was like, what was it, the wake almost. Afterwards, people come back to our house for tea, and there's a sense of happiness and fun and celebration that you'd normally get at an Irish wake. And the people who turned up were not the people I expected to turn up. So some friends had real trouble working with us and talking to us about it, because obviously it was a very difficult subject. And at that time, we had no idea how to talk about Joshua, how to talk about what had happened to us. But other people who, you know, we didn't think would stand up actually stood up and came along and rallied round. And that was amazing, the different types of support we got from different people. And then, as with most funerals, and if anybody's lost anybody, once the funeral's over and people have gone, you did the dishes, that's when it hits home. And that's when real impact in our mental health and our well-being kicks in, because my family lived 90 miles away, her family lives in America, and we have friends close, but again, once all the events have happened, we were on our own, and that was a dark time. It was a really dark time for Leslie. She had some counselling, some therapy, we did couples therapy together, but in reality, the focus, as you can imagine, is quite right, is on the mum and what she's going through, and physical and emotional changes, etc. And I honestly cannot tell you what those couple of months were like. It was living day to day of its existence. I eventually went back to work, which wasn't great, and things just kind of ticked along. And here's a big shout out for SANS. We discovered a charity called SANS, Stillbirth Neonatal Death Society charity, and we went to one of their meetings together. Now, this was not something I was keen on. I'm your typical Northern Ireland man, middle-aged, white. I don't talk about my feelings. I do now, obviously, but then I'm not going to sit in the room and go, "Hi, I'm Tommy, Joshua died." That just wasn't me. So we rocked up together, and this was very much me looking at the football scores. It was a Wednesday, I think it was Champions League or something on, and Leslie doing her emotional support counselling, whatever they did. And we were just sitting around a circle, and people were just chatting. They were chatting about the football, they were chatting about what had happened in EastEnders last night, etc. And I was kind of thinking to myself, you know, where's the whole dead baby thing? You know, when does that happen? And it wasn't like that. I was pleasantly surprised. Before we went there, we'd met one of the guys beforehand, outside, before the meeting started, just to kind of introduce ourselves, and him to introduce and tell us what was going on. And Colin Pigeon, big shout out. That was a fantastic introduction to SANS, because it's not about standing up, saying your name and telling your story. It's quite the reverse, actually. You can sit in the corner and hide and just listen to other people's stories. It really is peer support at its best, because everybody in the room has been where you've been at some stage, some quite recently, some further down the line, and they all know exactly what you're thinking, the good things, the bad things, some of the horrible things, and hearing people talk about those stories was what really saved us in those first few months after Joshua's death. We've both gone on to be quite involved in SANS and become befrienders and try to give back to what we've done before and what's helped us. But it wouldn't be too far to say, you know, those were real lifelines. And I've heard stories since then about how SANS and that peer support and those friendships really has kind of saved people's lives in some cases. And that first year after we lost Joshua, it was all about recovery. It was all about, I think it's fair to say Leslie had post-traumatic stress disorder. She had a lot of stuff going on. She went on the tablets, which really, really helped. She wasn't too keen on them, but I think they have helped. And then it was Abigail, our next child. In science circles, it's called a rainbow child, so the one you have after a loss. Stressful is not the word. Oh my word, that pregnancy was, we had our own room at the Royal. We were up there every week nearly. We didn't have midwife-led care. We had consultants, we had machines, we had checks, we had tests, we had everything. Really nervous, awful pregnancy, in that sense of the anxiety, etc. We had Abigail induced at 38 weeks, because there was no way we could have made it to 40 weeks. No way that Leslie herself could have managed that. Her mental health just would not have coped. And even though we'd been doing some resilience stuff and been talking to people at SANS, it just wasn't going to happen. But Abigail came along. She was wonderful. She is still wonderful. And a couple of years later, Maya came along. And we now have two beautiful, wonderful girls and Joshua. And our lives have changed. There's the old Skeletrix racetrack. I don't know if you know that analogy. So your life is going along, it's perfect, something happens, whoa, and now we're on a different path. And this is our new path, this is our new direction. And it's great, and it's sad to say, but losing Joshua and not having him with us has been one of the best things that's ever happened. It's awful to say that, but it's brought us together, it's brought us stronger. We've got a wonderful family, we've got great friends. We are now helping other people who are in the same situation, and that's immensely rewarding. So from a horrible place, a horrible thing, great things have happened. When Joshua died, my mental health was not something I thought about, to be honest. It was all about Leslie, my partner. I really just coped as the strong partner, the strong Irish man supporting his wife. And it wasn't until I started talking to other dads that I realised that role that we create for ourselves is almost as bad as what's actually happened to us. We're trying to be strong, we're trying to stand up and be the support to our partners, to the detriment of our own mental health and own mental well-being. And it wasn't until I started talking to other dads and other parents that I could see how I need to look after myself. If I wanted to be that person, I had to be strong myself first. It's the old first aid training, make sure you don't hurt yourself before helping somebody else. Make sure you put on your own mask on the airplane before putting on your kid's mask. If you're not strong enough yourself, you can't help others. You can't be the person you want to be for your partner. And SANS was my lifeline for that. It took me a while to get into that, to start being able to talk about these things. And the analogies we use, talking about, I started to do running, I'm running for Joshua. I'm training, doing fundraising for Joshua. We do some sports, talk about some sports, playing football for Joshua. And that's how I managed my mental health, doing things that I was comfortable with, exercise, running, etc. Enabled me to build up the resilience myself, because I'm doing stuff for Joshua, I'm strong for him, but in reality I'm being strong for myself and for Leslie as well. It was really difficult to support Leslie's mental health because I didn't know what to do. I literally was there, I was ears for her, and that was it. I couldn't do the man thing of do this and it'll fix it. That doesn't work for mental health. You can't turn a button, or you can't say, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about now. You need to go and do that and that'll stop it. So what I had to do was kind of relearn almost how we talked as a couple. I had to be ears rather than mouth. I had to be patient rather than active. I had to enable her to have the space to go, either to SANS on your own, to the consultant, to the psychologist, etc., and be their supporter. And when she broke down or wasn't able or couldn't do stuff, that's when I had to step up. How I did that with, and I don't know if I did that right or wrong, or I don't know what she said, or whether I was the person I hoped I was. And doing that while I was also trying to cope with grief and loss. I genuinely can't say that this is how I did it or this is what happened. You just muddle through. You try and do what you think's right at the time, whether that's right or not. We had our arguments, we had our kind of ups and downs, but I think just being together, that's what got us both through it. We both had each other to lean on. One of the things I've learned working with SANS and trying to reach out to dads and trying to reach out to them in different ways is just the vacuum that is there in Northern Ireland generally when it comes to things like mental health. It's very much emotions or talking, etc. And dads don't do that. There needs to be different ways of getting dads and men generally engaged in mental health. One of the things that's worked for me, I think one of the things that's worked when I've been working with SANS, is getting dads active, doing things, not talking, but actually doing. One of the examples was we had a social night out at City Golf, which was fantastic. So the guys were all around playing games, chatting, we had some food, a bit of drink, etc. I've actually heard that on that night, which was a couple of hours of socialising, not one dad mentioned anything about their children or their babies that had passed away. And it was all about football, it was all about the usual nonsense. But after the event, all the mums wrote into SANS saying, he had a fantastic time, it was great, he was there to talk about people and stuff, he didn't have to talk about his baby and anything. And we've done a lot of that since. So we do walks just with dads. In SANS, we do football matches. There's SANS United football teams where dads come together and play football semi-competitively, let's just say, more enthusiasm than skill. But I think for men generally, they don't get into the room and have a cup of tea and a biscuit and talk about their feelings. That's not how it's going to work. Some dads, I mean, it works for me. I've had to work at it for 12 years, but I've finally got there. Some dads can do that, and that's great. But most dads and men, that's not the way to do it. And if you wanted to reach out and start doing that, it's being active, it's been doing things rather than talk. And that's the way you're going to get men involved in talking about their mental health at a slight angle, as it were. So when we had a rainbow baby with Abigail, Leslie had consultant-led support. She was really great consultants. And I think she was still seeing the psychologist, clinical psychologist at the time. And obviously at that stage we had support from SANS. I used to remember thinking, what did I do at the time? You know, how did I get along? And I can remember thinking, I didn't. I mean, there was nothing there for people to come and say, well, how you doing? Tell me, are you all right? You know, how are you getting on with Leslie? How's things going? It just never happened. There was never any need for it either. It's not that I thought, oh, hang on a second, nobody's talking to me. Well, what about me? Nobody's thinking about my feelings. That whole men first nonsense. But fair enough. I mean, the journey was nothing there specifically for dads. All the support, as I think then and I think now, was quite rightly for the mums. But there is that support that dads and men think, you know, I need to be the strong one. But as I said, you need to be strong yourself first. You need your own mental health to be strong before you can even think about supporting anybody else. So there was nothing there. There was no midwife saying, you know, go and see this counsellor or go and do this, or have you thought about this programme which might help you? To be fair, the midwife said, well, you know, you're all right, you know, a cup of tea, you're fine, making sure I was fine when we were there. But no, there was never anything for men or for dads that was available then. What advice would I give anybody who's going through what we're going through? Oh God. The advice I'd give somebody who was going through what we're going through now is, you're not on your own. That's the most important thing. The days and months after we lost Joshua, when we were sitting in the house on our own with no family, no friends, there all the time, we thought, that's it, it's just us two versus the rest of the world. And that really kind of leads down into depression and very poor mental health. But you're not. You are not on your own. And you can reach out not just to places like SANS, you can reach out to the hospital. There are bereavement midwives in each of the hospitals now, who can put you in touch with lots and lots of different types of support that's available through the NHS. But again, through charities, depending on what's happened. I mean, there's Tiny Life, there's SANS, there's a range. I know crews are now doing bereavement grief counselling. There's a range of support out there. So you're not on your own. That whole pit of depression, you're thinking, it's not true. But you need to make the step. You need to reach out. You can't wait for this to come to you. People won't step on your door and say, hi, I'm here to help. You need to make the first step. Now, whether that's through the NHS, whether it's through charities, whether it's through friends and families, whether it's through your minister, your priest, whoever, you need to make that first step and start asking for the help. And then, boom, it's there. I suppose as a final thought, one of the things I do with SANS is go and train trainee midwives. I've done a number of those sessions now at the hospital. And whilst the midwives say, this is great, fantastic, really appreciate you coming along, for me it's almost an honour, if not a duty, for me to do that, to say thank you to the midwives who helped us throughout all of our pregnancies. And I was doing some training recently in the Royal for some trainee midwives who were literally 18, 19, and I'm early 50s now, and it was very weird sitting in the room with like 30 trainee midwives and me telling my story, similar to what I've just done. And one of the things I really want to say was, I keep giving this training saying, here's my experience, here's what you've done, here's what the wonderful midwives did for us when we had no idea what A, B, C or D, or even what we were allowed to do or what we should do, and the midwives did it all for us. And we have wonderful photographs and memories just because of those midwives who stepped in. And I used to always say, I can't remember all those people. I have no idea who they were through our grief and through our tears, but they were wonderful. And I did a recent session, as I say, and I found on my hard drive the list of all the names of all the midwives who helped us when we were giving birth to Joshua. And Catherine stands out. I have no idea who she is, what her name is, but just to say thank you, Catherine, and thank you to all the midwives who really helped us. It's a powerful emotion, what you can bring on in someone, and just helping people through these awful situations. It's a joy, so thank you.